The Zenith's promise moved through the darkness like a predator hunting ghosts. Its silver hull reflected nothing because there was nothing left to reflect in this part of space. Commander Veshkara stood on the bridge, her 4 eyes scanning the displays that showed the graveyard of human civilization. 847 years had passed since the Purge War, and still the debris fields remained. Broken ships, dead stations, the scattered bones of a species that had reached too far too fast. Veshkara's skin changed color from calm blue to thoughtful purple. She was Krinathi, part of the collective that ruled this section of the galaxy. Her people did not like to talk about the humans. It was an old shame, buried under centuries of progress and new alliances. But the dead zones remained, forbidden to most travelers, marked on every star chart with warnings that translated the same in 7 languages. Quarantine zone. Automated defenses may remain active. Commander, we have something, said Junior Scanner Relk from his station. His voice carried the clicking undertone of his species, the Hasith, who had joined the collective 200 years after the humans were gone. Veshkara moved to his station with smooth steps. What kind of something? A ship, human design. It was hidden behind the 3rd moon of that dead planet. Relk's claws danced across the controls. The computer says it is a Perseverance-class deep space vessel. Military configuration, but also designed for long-term exploration. The commander felt her breathing sacs tighten. Human ships were rare finds now. Most had been destroyed in the war or dismantled afterward. The few that remained were in museums. Monuments to a mistake the Krinathi Collective tried not to repeat. Show me. The main screen changed, and there it was. The ship looked like a piece of ancient history floating in the black. Its hull was scarred with weapons fire, the kind that came from Krinathi pulse cannons. Burns marked where shields had failed. Holes showed where projectiles had punched through. But the ship was intact, more or less. It spun slowly in space, tumbling end over end in a lazy rotation that had probably continued for centuries. Life signs? Veshkara asked, though she knew the answer. Nothing could survive 800 years in a dead ship. Relk's scales shifted color, showing confusion. That is the strange part, Commander. I am detecting something. It is very faint. The sensors keep saying yes, then no, then yes again. Automated systems, suggested Tactical Officer Mornith from her station. The humans were clever with their machines. It could be a reactor signature or a defense system waiting for targets. Veshkara considered this. It made sense. The humans had been brilliant with technology, which was part of why they had been deemed too dangerous. In just 500 years, they had gone from primitive chemical rockets to ships that could cross star systems. Another century, and they might have developed faster than light travel that surpassed Krinathi science. The collective had debated for 3 years before making the decision. Containment had failed. Coexistence was deemed impossible. So the order was given: remove the threat. 7 days. That was all it took to end humanity. Veshkara had not been born yet when it happened. But she had studied the war in the military academy. She had seen the recordings, read the reports, understood the reasoning, and still, late at night in her quarters, she wondered if there had been another way. Prepare a boarding party, she said finally. Full environmental suits. Weapons on stun settings only. If there are active defense systems, I want them disabled, not destroyed. This ship is a historical artifact. Yes, Commander, Mornith replied. But her tone suggested she thought this was a waste of time. 2 hours later, Veshkara floated through the docking tube that connected her ship to the human vessel. Her suit's lights cut through the darkness, revealing walls that had once been white, but were now stained with age and violence. The boarding team moved in formation behind her. Mornith, Relk, Medical Officer Telnar, and 4 security personnel. The ship's interior was cold. Not just the cold of space, but something deeper. The cold of death and time. Their boots made no sound in the vacuum as they moved through corridors lit only by their helmet lamps. Everything was frozen, preserved by the void. Bodies floated in some sections. Crew members who had died when life support failed. They had been human, and seeing them made Veshkara's skin shift to a sorrowful gray. The biosignature is coming from the lower decks, Relk reported, checking his scanner. Section 7C. The ship's layout shows that as cryogenic storage. Veshkara felt something cold that had nothing to do with temperature. Cryogenic storage meant stasis pods, and stasis pods meant the impossible. They descended through access shafts past engineering bays and crew quarters. The ship had been home to 234 humans, according to the name plates they passed. Each had been a person with a life, a family, dreams. All gone now, erased in the name of galactic security. Section 7 to C was deep in the ship's belly, protected by thick walls designed to survive anything. The door was sealed, but Morneth's cutting tools made short work of it. It fell inward with a crash they felt through their boots but could not hear. Inside, the cryobay was dark except for one thing. A single pod, standing alone in a room designed for 20, had a light. It was red and weak, flickering like a dying heartbeat, but it was on. Impossible, whispered Morneth. Telnar pushed forward, his medical scanner already out. The pod is functional. Barely. It is running on emergency reserves. The power should have failed centuries ago. He looked up at Veshkara, his 6 eyes wide. Commander, there is someone alive in there. The boarding party gathered around the pod, their lights illuminating the frost-covered glass. Inside, through the ice, they could see a face. Human. Female. Her skin was dark brown, her hair was black and cut short. Her expression was peaceful, like she was simply asleep. How is this possible? Relk asked. No stasis pod can function for 800 years. Telnar was studying his scanner with frantic movements. This is not a standard pod. The humans modified it. Look at these power readings. It has been cycling between full stasis and minimal life support, adjusting to conserve energy. Someone programmed it to keep her alive as long as physically possible. Veshkara moved closer, staring at the sleeping human. The last human. The last survivor of a species the collective had erased. The weight of that realization pressed down on her like a physical force.
Can you wake her?
She asked. I do not know, Telnar admitted. The pod is failing. If we do nothing, she will die within days, maybe hours. But waking her after such a long time, her body may not survive the transition. And if she does survive, Morneth added quietly, what then? She wakes to find her entire species dead, killed by us. She wakes alone in a galaxy that decided she should not exist. The commander looked at her tactical officer. Are you suggesting we should let her die? I am suggesting we consider carefully, Morneth replied. The collective made its decision about humanity. This survivor complicates that decision. Veshkara's skin flashed angry red before she controlled it. The collective made a decision about a species, not a person. This woman did nothing. She was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. She turned to Telnar. Stabilize the pod. We are taking it back to Zenith's promise, and then you will wake her carefully and safely. Commander, I must protest, Morneth began. Protest noted and ignored, Veshkara cut her off. This is my decision. They extracted the pod carefully, taking 3 hours to disconnect it from the ship's failing power grid and connect it to portable generators. All the while, Veshkara could not stop looking at the woman's face. She looked young, maybe 30 in human years. She wore a uniform with patches that showed her rank and specialty. Veshkara's translator worked on the text. Dr. Sarah Chen, Xenobiology Division, United Nations Space Force. A scientist, then. Not a soldier. Someone who had studied other species, tried to understand them. The irony was bitter. As they transported the pod back to their ship, Veshkara noticed something else. On the wall near where the pod had stood, someone had scratched words into the metal. Human writing, crude and desperate. For Sarah, survive, tell our story, I love you, me. Someone had loved this woman enough to program the pod to fight for her life for centuries. Someone had spent their last moments making sure she had a chance. Veshkara traced the letters with her gloved hand, feeling the grief that had carved them. Back on Zenith's promise, Telnar set up the pod in the medical bay. The rest of the crew gathered to watch, word having spread quickly. It was not every day you found the last survivor of a species. Beginning revival sequence, Telnar announced. His hands moved over the pod's controls, coaxing the ancient systems to cooperate. This will take several hours. Her body needs time to adjust. Veshkara watched as the frost began to melt from the glass. The pod's internal systems hummed to life, powered now by the ship's reactor instead of dying batteries. Slowly, color returned to the woman's face. Her chest began to rise and fall, shallowly at first, then more steadily. Vital signs improving, Telnar reported. Heart rate increasing. Brain activity returning. Commander, I believe she is going to survive the waking process. And then what? Asked Morneth, who had remained in the medical bay. What do we do with her? She is the last human. That makes her, what, a prisoner? A refugee? A historical curiosity? That makes her a person, Veshkara said firmly, and we will treat her as such. The pod's lid released with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Steam rose from the interior as the last of the cryogel drained away. The woman inside stirred, her fingers twitching. Her eyes moved beneath their lids. Telnar leaned over the pod with a medical scanner. She is waking. Everyone stay back. We do not know how she will react. The woman's eyes opened. They were brown, deep, and dark, and for a moment they stared at nothing, confused and unfocused. Then they cleared and awareness flooded back. She looked up at the ring of alien faces surrounding her pod, and Veshkara saw the exact moment when consciousness returned. The woman's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, and she screamed. It was a sound of pure terror and loss, the cry of someone waking from one nightmare into another. She thrashed in the pod, trying to get out, get away. Medical restraints activated automatically, holding her down. The screaming continued, ragged and desperate. "Sedate her," Veshkara ordered. Telnar injected something into the pod's medical system. The woman's struggles weakened, her screams fading to whimpers. But her eyes remained open, locked on Veshkara, and in them the commander saw something that would haunt her. The look of someone who had lost everything, who knew they were alone in a hostile universe. The woman's lips moved, forming words in a language that had been dead for 8 centuries. Veshkara's translator caught them. Please tell me they're not all gone. Please tell me I'm not the last." Veshkara's skin shifted to the deepest gray, the color of mourning. She had no answer that would not break this woman's heart, so she said nothing, and watched as the sedative pulled the last human back into merciful unconsciousness. Behind her, Mornith spoke quietly. "You should have let her die in the pod, Commander. It would have been kinder." Veshkara did not respond. She could not, because part of her wondered if Mornith was right. What life could this woman have now? What future existed for the last survivor of humanity? But another part of her, the part that had always questioned the Purge War, thought differently. This woman had survived 800 years against impossible odds. Someone had loved her enough to give her that chance, and perhaps, just perhaps, there was a reason she had lived. The commander turned to her crew. Full medical care, comfortable quarters once she is stable, and someone find a human language specialist. When she wakes again, I want to be able to talk to her properly. Commander, Relk ventured carefully, should we not report this to the Collective Council? Veshkara considered. The council would want to know immediately, but they would also want to decide what to do with this woman, and the commander was not sure she trusted that decision. Not yet, she said finally. First we stabilize her, then we figure out who she is and what she knows. After that we report. Are we clear? The crew nodded, though some looked uncertain. As they dispersed to their duties, Veshkara remained in the medical bay watching the woman sleep. Dr. Sarah Chen, xenobiologist, last human. A ghost from a dead past dropped into a present that had tried to forget she existed. The commander pulled up the records from the Perseverance, wanting to understand. The ship had been a long-range exploration vessel, sent to study a distant nebula. It had been 9 months into its mission when the Purge War began. By the time news reached them, Earth was already gone. The ship had tried to run, but Krenathi interceptors had found them near Mars. The crew had fought. They had died. And someone, probably that person who had carved the message on the wall, had put Sarah Chen into the modified pod and programmed it to save her, no matter what. 847 years later, it had worked. Veshkara touched the glass of the woman's sleeping chamber gently. "I am sorry," she whispered in Krenathi, knowing the woman could not hear. "I am sorry for what my people did to yours. But you survived, and I promise you, I will make sure that means something." She did not know then how much that promise would cost, or how much it would change everything. She only knew that the war everyone thought was over had just become complicated again, all because one human refused to die. Sarah Chen woke slowly, like swimming up from the bottom of a dark ocean. Her body felt wrong, heavy and disconnected. Her mouth tasted like metal and old medicine. For a moment she floated in the space between sleep and consciousness, not remembering, not thinking, just existing. Then memory crashed back, and she wished she had stayed under. The attack, the Perseverance shaking as weapons fire tore through its shields. Captain Morrison, her wife, shouting orders as the crew tried desperately to evade. The Krenathi ships everywhere, silver and deadly, blocking every escape route. The decision made in seconds. Sarah would go into the emergency pod. She was the xenobiologist, the one who spoke alien languages, who understood their cultures. If anyone survived to make peace, it should be her. She remembered Morgan's hands shaking as they programmed the pod. Remembered her wife's last words. "I love you. Survive. Tell our story." Remembered the pod sealing shut, the cold flooding in, the world fading to nothing. She opened her eyes. The room was wrong. Too clean, too bright, too alien. Medical equipment surrounded her bed, machines that looked nothing like human technology. The walls curved in ways that human ships never curved, and standing at the foot of her bed, watching her with 4 eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light, was a Krenathi. Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. She tried to move, to run, to fight, but her body would not cooperate. Her muscles felt like jelly, her limbs too weak to lift. The Krenathi made a sound, soft and musical. Then a mechanical voice spoke in English, tinny and artificial but understandable. "Dr. Chen, please remain calm. You are safe. You are on the Krenathi vessel Zenith's Promise. I am Commander Veshkara. We found you drifting near Mars." Sarah's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She tried again. "Water." Veshkara moved quickly, bringing a cup with a strange straw. She helped Sarah drink, and the liquid was cold and sweet and tasted like nothing Sarah had ever had before. But it helped, and after a few sips she could speak. "How long?" she rasped. Veshkara's skin changed color, shifting from blue to purple. Sarah's training told her this was an emotional response, but she could not remember what the colors meant. "That is difficult to explain." "How long?" The commander's 4 eyes closed briefly. 847 years, the room spun. Sarah felt like she was falling even though she was lying down. 800 years. More than 800 years. Everyone she had ever known, everyone she had ever loved was dust. Not just dead, gone. Ancient history, the others? She whispered, even though she knew. She had to know. The crew? The Perseverance? "I am sorry," Veshkara said, and her skin went dark gray. "You are the only survivor we found. The rest of the crew, they did not make it. Morgan, Captain Morrison, her wife, dead for 8 centuries while Sarah slept in a pod, preserved like a specimen in a jar. Sarah felt something break inside her chest, something that could not be fixed. And Earth? She had to ask, even though terror made the words stick in her throat. My home, my planet. Veshkara's colors shifted again, darker. "Dr. Chen, I must tell you something. It will be difficult to hear." Sarah laughed, and it sounded insane even to her own ears. "Difficult? You already told me everyone I love is dead, and I've been asleep for 800 years. What could be more difficult than that?" "Humanity is extinct," Veshkara said quietly. "The war ended in 7 days. Earth was... There were no survivors. The collective determined that humans were too dangerous to coexist with galactic civilization. I am sorry. You are the last." The machines around Sarah's bed started beeping frantically. She could not breathe, could not think. Her vision tunneled down to a single point, and that point was the Krenathi standing at her bedside. The Krenathi who had just admitted that her people had committed genocide. "You killed them," Sarah heard herself say. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "You killed everyone. 8 billion people. You killed my wife. You killed my species. And now you're telling me you're sorry?" "Dr. Chen, please get away from me!" Sarah tried to sit up, to lunge, to attack, but her body still would not work. Frustration and rage poured out as screaming. "Get away! Don't touch me! You're murderers!" Murderers? More aliens rushed into the room. One of them, tall and thin with 6 eyes, pushed something into the medical equipment. Sarah felt coldness spread through her veins. "No," she slurred. "No, don't. I have to. The darkness took her again. When she woke the next time, she was alone. The room was dimmer, quieter. Her body worked better now, though everything ached. She sat up slowly, taking stock. She was wearing a medical gown made of fabric that felt too smooth to be human-made. Her arms showed needle marks where IVs had been. Her skin looked too thin, too pale, like she had been sick for a long time. Because she had been. Sick with 800 years of sleep, Sarah put her face in her hands and cried. She cried for Morgan, who had given everything to save her. She cried for the crew of the Perseverance. Good people who had just wanted to explore the stars. She cried for Earth, for humanity, for everything that was gone and could never come back. She cried until there were no tears left, and then she just sat there empty and hollow. The door made a soft sound. Sarah looked up to see a new alien entering. This one was different from Veshikara, with 6 eyes instead of 4, and skin that looked more like scales than the smooth surface the commander had. It moved carefully, like approaching a dangerous animal. Dr. Chen, the mechanical translator voice said, "I am Medical Officer Telnar. I have been caring for you. May I examine you?" Sarah almost said no, almost told him to go away, to leave her alone to die. But spite flared in her chest, hot and bright. They had killed her species, but she was still here. She would not make it easy for them. "Fine," she said. Telnar examined her with instruments that hummed and beeped. He was professional, careful not to touch her more than necessary. After a while, he spoke again. "Your recovery is remarkable. The long-term stasis should have caused significant muscle atrophy and organ damage, but whoever modified your pod did brilliant work. You will need physical therapy, but you should make a full recovery." "How wonderful," Sarah said bitterly. "I get to be healthy while being the last human alive." Telner's scales shifted color, a ripple of blue and green. "I cannot imagine what you are feeling. But for what it is worth, I am glad you survived. What my people did to yours was wrong." Sarah looked at him sharply. "You're Kranathi?" "Yes. So you're one of the people who decided my species was too dangerous to exist." "I was not born yet when the decision was made," Telnar said carefully. "But I am Kranathi, yes, and I cannot change what my people did. I can only tell you that many of us, especially younger generations, believe the Purge War was a terrible mistake. It is a stain on our history." "A stain," Sarah repeated. 8 billion people. A stain. A genocide, Telnar corrected, meeting her eyes with all 6 of his. "That is the word, is it not? What we did was genocide. There is no softer word that makes it acceptable." Sarah stared at him, surprised despite herself. She had expected excuses, justifications, the kind of political language that made atrocities sound reasonable. "Not this blunt honesty. Why did you?" she asked. "I was a xenobiologist. I studied all of you, the Kranathi and the others in the collective. We wanted to join you, to be part of the galactic community. We were trying to be peaceful, so why?" Telnar was quiet for a long moment. "Fear," he said finally. "Your species advanced too quickly. In 500 years, you went from primitive rockets to ships that could cross star systems. You were developing technologies that scared the collective, and humans were unpredictable, aggressive. The collective debated for 3 years and decided that containment would not work, that eventually humans would become a threat that could not be stopped. So you stopped us first," Sarah said. "Killed us before we could become dangerous." "Yes. We were trying to be better," Sarah whispered. "We knew we had problems. We were working on them. Violence, aggression, tribalism. We knew these were issues. That's why programs like mine existed. I was studying how to bridge the gap between species, how to communicate, how to coexist. We just needed time." "I know," Telnar said. "I have read your work." "It was brilliant," Sarah blinked. "What?" "Your research papers, your studies on interspecies communication protocols. They survived in the galactic database. After the war, some Kranathi scholars studied human science, trying to understand what we had destroyed. Your work was considered revolutionary. You developed communication frameworks that we still use today." She did not know what to say to that. Her work had survived, had been used, while she and everyone she knew had been erased. It felt obscene. "I want to see," she said suddenly. "Earth, Mars, show me what you did." Telnar hesitated. "Dr. Chen, I do not think would show me." Sarah's voice cracked. "You owe me that much. Show me what's left of my home." The medical officer's scales rippled with distress, but he nodded. "I will speak to the commander." An hour later, Sarah stood in front of a large viewing screen in what appeared to be a conference room. She had dressed in clothes the crew had made for her, simple and functional but clearly alien in design. Her legs shook from weakness, but she refused to sit. She needed to stand for this. Veshkara entered, her skin carefully neutral blue. "Dr. Chen, Telnar said you wished to see Earth." "Yes." The commander studied her with those 4 glowing eyes. "It will be painful." "Everything is painful now," Sarah replied. "Show me." Veshkara touched a control and the screen changed. Earth appeared, but it was not the Earth Sarah remembered. The planet looked dead, its surface scarred with massive impact craters. The atmosphere was thin and gray. The oceans were smaller, darker. The lights that should have dotted the night side, showing cities and civilization, were absent. It was a corpse of a world. The war was short but thorough, Veshikara said quietly. Kinetic strikes destroyed major population centers. The infrastructure collapsed. Within days, billions were dead. The survivors lasted perhaps a few years. But without technology, without support systems, they could not maintain civilization. The planet's ecology was severely damaged. It will take thousands of years for Earth to recover. Sarah's fingers pressed against the screen, touching the image of her dead world. Did anyone escape? Colony ships, outposts, anything? No, Veshikara said. The collective was thorough. Every human installation was located and neutralized. Mars, Europa, Titan, all the colonies were destroyed. Deep space vessels were hunted down and eliminated. You should not have survived, Dr. Chen. Your pod should have failed centuries ago. Someone gave you a miracle. Morgan. Morgan had given her a miracle, and now Sarah had to live with it. What happens to me now? She asked, still staring at dead Earth. Am I a prisoner? An experiment? A museum piece? That is complicated, Veshikara admitted. I have not yet reported your existence to the Collective Council. When I do, they will want to decide your fate. Some will see you as a threat, the last remnant of a dangerous species. Others will see you as proof of their crime, evidence that makes them uncomfortable. And a few perhaps will see you as I do. How do you see me? As a person who deserves a chance, Veshikara said. As someone who was wronged by decisions made before she could have any say in them. As a survivor who should be allowed to survive. Sarah turned to face her. Why do you care? You're Krinathi. Your people killed mine. Veshikara's skin shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple. Because I have studied the war. I have read the reports, seen the recordings, understood the reasoning, and I have concluded that we were wrong. Perhaps humans were dangerous. Perhaps they would have been a threat. But we did not have to kill everyone. We could have tried harder at understanding, at coexistence. We chose the easy answer, the violent answer, and I do not want to make that choice again. Meaning what? Meaning I want to help you if you will let me, the commander said. You are alone, yes. You are the last human, but you are also someone with knowledge, with skills, with value. The galaxy has changed in 800 years. There are problems you might be able to help solve. And perhaps in helping you can find a reason to keep living. Sarah wanted to say no, wanted to spit in the commander's face, to reject everything that Krinathi offered. But she was tired, so tired, and the thought of having nothing, of being nothing, was worse than accepting help from her people's killers. What kind of help? She asked. We have been trying to access human installations, Veshikara explained. Military facilities, research stations, places that still have automated defenses. They are dangerous to shipping, to travel. We cannot shut them down without human authorization codes, human knowledge. You could help with that. You want me to help you clean up what's left of my species? I want you to have a purpose, Veshikara corrected. I want you to have a reason to get up each day instead of drowning in grief. And yes, we would benefit from your help, but you would benefit too. Sarah thought about it, thought about spending every day in this room staring at dead Earth waiting to die, thought about Morgan who had fought so hard to keep her alive, thought about what her wife would want her to do. If I help you, she said slowly, I want things in return. Name them. Freedom. Not a prisoner, not a pet. I come and go as I please on this ship. I get answers when I ask questions. And when you finally report me to your council, I want to speak for myself. I want to tell them exactly what I think about what they did. Veshikara's skin flashed several colors quickly. Surprise, Sarah thought. Maybe respect. Agreed, the commander said. You will have limited freedom at first, until the crew becomes accustomed to you. But yes, you will be a guest, not a prisoner, and when the time comes, you will speak to the council yourself. You have my word. The word of a Krinathi, Sarah said bitterly. Forgive me if I don't find that comforting. I do not ask you to forgive me, Dr. Chen, Veshikara replied. I cannot change the past. I can only try to make the future less terrible. Will you help me do that? Sarah looked at the screen one more time, at Earth floating dead and cold in space. She thought about all the people who were gone, all the dreams that had died with them, and she thought about Morgan's last words. Survive. Yes, she said quietly. I'll help. Not for you, for them. So someone remembers what we were. Veshkara's skin shifted to a warm orange, and Sarah's translator helpfully supplied that this meant gratitude. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Call me Sarah, she said. If I'm going to be stuck with you people, we might as well skip the formalities. The commander's colors shifted again, something that might have been a smile. Then call me Vesh. Welcome aboard, Sarah Chen. Welcome to your new life. Sarah nodded but did not reply, because this was not a new life. It was a half-life, a shadow existence in a galaxy that had killed everyone she loved, but it was all she had. And Morgan had given everything to give her this chance, so she would take it. She would survive, and someday, somehow she would make sure the universe remembered humanity, not as a threat, not as a mistake, but as people who had loved, who had dreamed, who had deserved better. That was the promise she made herself, standing in front of her dead world. That was how she would honor the 8 billion ghosts that haunted her every breath. She was Sarah Chen, she was a xenobiologist. She was the last human, and she would not let them forget what that meant. 6 months had passed since Sarah Chen woke to a universe without humanity. 6 months of physical therapy, learning to walk again after 8 centuries of sleep. 6 months of language practice refreshing the alien tongues she had once studied. 6 months of work, helping the Kranathi access old human facilities that still protected dead worlds with lethal efficiency. And 6 months of nightmares. Sarah stood in the observation deck of the Zenith's Promise, watching stars slide past as the ship traveled between systems. Her reflection stared back from the transparent aluminum, and she barely recognized herself. She had gained back the weight that stasis had stolen, but her eyes were different now, harder, older. They were the eyes of someone who had died and come back to find the world gone. You should be resting, Veshkara said, entering the deck behind her. The commander had developed a habit of checking on Sarah at odd hours, as if worried she might disappear. I don't sleep much anymore, Sarah replied. It was true. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Earth burning, saw Morgan's face as the pod sealed, heard 8 billion voices screaming. Veshkara's skin shifted to concerned purple. Telner can provide medication. I don't want to be drugged, Sarah cut her off. I want to be awake. To remember. It's all I have left of them. The commander was silent for a moment, then came to stand beside her. Over the months, they had developed something like friendship, though Sarah was not sure that was the right word. You could not truly be friends with someone whose people had killed yours, but they had reached an understanding, a careful trust built on honesty and shared work. We're approaching the next facility, Veshkara said, the Jupiter station. According to our records, it was a military research installation. The automated defenses are still active and have destroyed 2 collective ships that came too close. Sarah nodded. She had been studying the facility's records for weeks. It's a weapons development center. They were working on theoretical faster-than-light systems when the war started. The defenses are probably set to maximum aggression. Can you disable them? Maybe, if the security systems recognize my biometrics. If the backup power hasn't failed. If the AI hasn't degraded too much over 8 centuries? Sarah turned to face Vesh. There are a lot of ifs. But you will try. Yes. Sarah paused, considering her next words carefully. Vesh, why hasn't the council contacted you? You said you'd report me eventually, but it's been 6 months. The commander's color shifted uncomfortably. I have been delaying. Every time I prepare the report, I find reasons to wait. We need your help with one more facility. We need you to be stronger. We need more time to present you properly. You're afraid of what they'll do to me. Yes, Veshkara admitted. The council is divided. Some members would see you protected, studied, honored as a survivor. Others would see you as a threat, a liability, something to be eliminated quietly. I am not certain which faction would win. Sarah felt cold despite the comfortable temperature. So I'm a political problem. You are a living reminder of genocide, Vesh corrected. That makes some people uncomfortable. Good, Sarah said harshly. They should be uncomfortable. They should wake up every day and remember what they did. Many do, Vesh said quietly. The Purge War is not celebrated, Sarah. It is taught as a dark chapter, a mistake. But teaching history and facing a survivor are different things. You make it real in a way old records do not. Sarah turned back to the window. Tell me something, Vesh. If the council orders my death, will you obey? The question hung in the air like a blade. Veshkara's skin flickered through several colors rapidly, showing emotional turmoil. "I do not know," she said finally. "I am a soldier. I follow orders. But I have also grown to respect you. I would not want to harm you. But you would if ordered to." I said I do not know. Vesh's voice was strained. "Please do not ask me to choose between my duty and my conscience before I must make that choice." Sarah almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then she remembered Earth. Remembered 8 billion dead, and the sympathy dried up. "Fine. Let's go shut down Jupiter Station." The approach took 3 hours. The facility orbited Jupiter's moon Io, hidden in the sulfur plumes that constantly erupted from the volcanic surface. It was a massive structure, built for defense and secrecy. As they drew closer, Sarah could see the weapon emplacements tracking their approach, ready to fire. "Broadcasting human identification codes now," she said, transmitting the security protocols she had memorized in another life. "Vessel Perseverance xenobiology mission requesting emergency access due to hostile pursuit." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a beam of light lanced out from the station, scanning the zenith's promise from bow to stern. "They're checking for human life signs," Sarah explained. "Looking for me specifically." "And if they find only you among aliens?" Vesh asked nervously. "Then they might think I'm a hostage and blow us up anyway." This is why I said there were a lot of ifs. The scanning beam vanished. Sarah held her breath. Then a mechanical voice filled the bridge, speaking English with a slight accent that brought tears to her eyes. It was a human voice recorded centuries ago but still alive in machine form. Human biometric confirmed. Dr. Sarah Chen, Xenobiology Division. "Welcome to Jupiter Station, Doctor. Please explain the nature of your escort." Sarah's hands shook as she replied. "Jupiter Station, this is Dr. Chen. I'm transmitting my authorization codes now. I need to speak with the station AI directly. Command override Chen 77 Alpha Zulu." Another pause. Then override accepted. Transferring to Central Intelligence. The voice changed, became smoother, more aware. "Dr. Chen, I'm Archon, the station's central AI. I must inform you that you are 847 years overdue for your scheduled check-in." Sarah laughed, and it was half-sob. "Yeah, I know. I was delayed. I am detecting numerous non-human life forms on your vessel. Please explain." "Archon, I need you to listen carefully. I'm about to tell you something difficult. The war is over. Humanity lost. Earth is gone. Everyone is dead." "I'm the last." Silence on the channel. Sarah could almost feel the AI processing, calculating, trying to understand the impossible. "That is suboptimal," Archon said finally, and Sarah barked another painful laugh at the understatement. "Yeah, suboptimal. That's one word for it." She took a breath. "Archon, I need to ask you something. Are there others? Other stations, other protocols? Did humanity leave anything behind besides graves?" "Accessing classified files," Archon replied. "Authorization required for Resurgence protocol information." Sarah's heart skipped. "Resurgence protocol? What is that?" "I cannot say without proper authorization. Your clearance is insufficient. I'm the last human alive." "Then I suggest you obtain higher clearance," Archon said with machine logic. "However, I can confirm that Jupiter Station is one of 17 facilities scattered across the galaxy. We were designed to survive if humanity did not." 17 stations. Sarah's mind raced. 17 facilities that might hold supplies, technology, information, maybe even the tools to rebuild. "Archon, can you give me a list of these stations?" "Not without authorization. However, if you were to physically access my core systems, the information would become available through standard terminal access." Sarah smiled grimly. The AI was giving her a workaround, a way to get the information without technically violating its protocols. "I'll need to dock then. That would be acceptable. However, Dr. Chen, I must warn you. I detect Kranathi signatures on your vessel. My defense protocols require me to neutralize Kranathi threats." "They're not threats," Sarah said quickly. "They're complicated. Can you override the defensive protocols?" "Only if you physically authorize it from the command center. Otherwise, I am required to fire on any Kranathi vessels within range." Sarah looked at Veshkara. "I need to go aboard alone. If you come with me, the station will attack the ship." "Absolutely not," Vesh said immediately. "We do not know what else is on that station. You could be walking into danger." "The danger is out here if I don't go," Sarah countered. Your ship against station weapons that were designed to stop Krenathi fleets. You'll lose. Vesh's skin flashed frustrated orange. Take a security team. Aliens on the station triggers the defenses. It has to be me. Just me. They argued for another 10 minutes, but Sarah was stubborn and Arshan was inflexible. Finally, Vesh agreed, but only with the condition that Sarah wear a communicator and stay in constant contact. The docking was eerie. The station's bay was clean, preserved by the vacuum of space, but it felt like a tomb. Sarah's footsteps echoed as she made her way through corridors that had not seen life in centuries. The walls were covered with human writing, signs and notices about safety protocols and shift schedules. It was like walking through a museum of her species. She found the command center at the station's heart. It was exactly as the designers had left it, terminals dark but ready, waiting for someone to bring them back to life. Sarah sat at the main console and placed her hand on the biometric scanner. Dr. Sarah Chen confirmed. Archon's voice filled the room. Welcome back, Doctor. How may I serve you? Tell me about the resurgence protocol, Sarah said. Accessing files. The screens around her lit up, showing documents, plans, schematics. The resurgence protocol was humanity's insurance policy. 17 stations were built in secret during the tension period before the war. Each contains genetic material, embryo banks, cultural databases, and advanced AI systems designed to preserve and potentially restore humanity if extinction occurred. Sarah stared at the screens, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. Millions of genetic samples, detailed records of human culture, history, art, science, everything needed to bring humanity back from extinction. We can restore them, she whispered. We can bring humanity back. That is theoretically possible, Archon confirmed. However, there are significant obstacles. The embryo banks require specific environmental conditions and extensive resources. Growing humans to adulthood would take decades, and without a human society to raise them, the restored humans would not truly be human in the cultural sense. Sarah's excitement deflated slightly. Archon was right. She could potentially create humans, but they would be orphans in an alien galaxy, raised by machines and aliens, with no connection to the culture they supposedly represented. Show me the locations of the other stations, she commanded. A star map appeared, showing 16 points scattered across known space. But as Sarah studied them, her hope died a little more with each location. 5 stations were in territory now occupied by hostile alien nations. 3 were in areas too dangerous to reach. 4 had sent out automated distress signals years ago, suggesting they had been discovered and destroyed. That left 4 stations besides Jupiter, and reaching them would require resources and ships Sarah did not have. Archon, what's your power status? Backup reactors at 47% capacity. I can maintain basic functions for approximately 200 more years. Can you send a message to the other stations? Find out which ones are still operational? Negative. Communication would reveal their locations to anyone monitoring these frequencies. My programming prohibits such action unless authorized by a command-level officer. Sarah leaned back in the chair, feeling the weight of impossible choices. She could try to reach the other stations, but that would take years and would require telling the Krenathi Council about them. The Council might help, or they might destroy the stations as threats. She could try to use the genetic material here to restore humanity, but creating babies without families or culture felt wrong, like making ghosts instead of people. Vesh, are you hearing this? She said into her communicator. Yes, the commander's voice came back. Sarah, this changes everything. If the Council learns about these stations, they'll want them destroyed, Sarah finished. Or controlled. Either way, humanity's last chance disappears. Not necessarily, Vesh said carefully. Some Council members might see this as an opportunity to make amends, to restore what was taken. And you? What do you see? Vesh was quiet for a long time. I see a choice. We can tell the Council now, and let them decide humanity's fate again. Or we can wait, investigate the other stations, gather more information before forcing that decision. You mean hide this from your superiors? I mean, give you time to understand what you have before others take it from you. Sarah thought about it. Thought about trust, about risk, about the fact that Vesh was offering to commit what amounted to treason for her sake. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really? Why do you care about humanity's survival? Because 800 years ago, my people made a choice based on fear, Vesh replied. We decided that someone else was too dangerous to exist, so we killed them all. And we have lived with that shame ever since. If there is a chance to undo even a small part of that crime, I want to take it. Not just for you, Sarah, for us, so that we can be better than we were. Sarah closed her eyes. It would be so easy to hate all Krinathi, to see them as a monolith of evil, but Vesh was an individual, trying to make better choices than our ancestors had. That had to count for something. Okay, Sarah said finally. We'll keep this quiet for now. But Archon, I need you to do something for me. What is your request, Dr. Chen? Start compiling everything. All the cultural data, all the scientific information, everything humanity was. If I can't restore my people physically, at least I can preserve them digitally. Can you do that?
That will require significant processing power and time.
But yes, it is possible. Then start. And Archon, thank you for waiting, for surviving, for keeping humanity alive even when there were no humans left to keep it for. It is my purpose, Dr. Chen, and if I may say so, it is gratifying to have that purpose renewed. Sarah spent another hour on the station, downloading what information she could carry and setting Archon on his task. As she prepared to leave, the AI spoke again. Dr. Chen, one more thing. My sensors detect a beacon signal from another station. Station Omega. It is unusual. Unusual how? The signal contains a message repeating every hour. It says, for those who come after, hope survives. Find us. Sarah felt her breath catch. Someone's alive. At another station? Unknown. The message could be automated, but it began transmitting only 7 years ago, long after the war ended. Something changed at Station Omega recently. 7 years ago, something had activated there, had sent out a signal. Maybe it was just a malfunction, or maybe impossibly there was another survivor. Send me the coordinates, Sarah said. Encrypted. I'll find a way to get there. As she made her way back to the Zenith's promise, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. Resurgence protocols, hidden stations, maybe even another survivor. Humanity's story might not be over after all. But the danger was real too. If the wrong people learned about these stations, they would be destroyed. And Sarah was just one person, dependent on aliens who had killed her species, trying to preserve something that everyone else had decided should not exist. When she stepped back onto the Krinathi ship, Vesh was waiting. The commander looked at her with all 4 eyes, reading her expression. You found something important, Vesh said. Yeah, Sarah replied. Something that's going to make both our lives a lot more complicated. Tell me. And Sarah did. She told Vesh about the resurgence protocol, about the stations, about the beacon from Omega. She trusted the commander with humanity's last secrets, betting everything on the hope that this one alien could be different than the ones who came before. It was the biggest gamble of her life, but it was the only play she had. And somewhere across the stars, a beacon repeated its message. For those who come after, hope survives. Find us. Sarah intended to do exactly that. The journey to Station Omega took 4 months. 4 months of planning, of careful navigation through territories that did not welcome Krinathi vessels. 4 months of Sarah learning everything she could from the data Archon had provided, and 4 months of Veshkara delaying, lying and misdirecting her superiors about what they were really doing. Another report is due to the council, Mornath said, standing in Vesh's office. The tactical officer had been growing increasingly nervous about their unofficial mission. Commander, we are running out of excuses. Vesh looked tired. Her skin had been stuck on stress gray for weeks now. Tell them we are investigating anomalous readings in the outer darkness. Which is true. While hiding the most significant discovery in 8 centuries, Mornath replied. Commander, I have been loyal. I have followed your orders without question. But this is treason. If the council learns we have been concealing these stations, then I will face the consequences, Vesh interrupted. You have my word, Mornath. I will take full responsibility. You were following orders. That excuse did not work for war criminals 800 years ago, Mornath said quietly. It will not work now. Sarah stood in the doorway, listening. She had not meant to eavesdrop, but their voices carried. She stepped into view. She's right, Vesh, this isn't fair to your crew. Both aliens looked at her. Sarah had changed over the months. She was stronger now, physically and mentally. She wore a modified version of the ship's uniform, dark blue with a patch she had designed herself. Earth and the moon, stitched in silver thread. It was the only piece of humanity on the ship besides her. I am aware of the risks, Vesh said. But they're not your risks to take for everyone, Sarah replied. She looked at Mornith. You have doubts. That's smart. I would too. But you need to understand what we're protecting. If the Council gets control of those stations before I understand what they contain, humanity's last hope disappears. I'm not asking you to betray your people. I'm asking you to give me time to protect mine. Mornith's skin flickered with conflicted colors. There are no more of your people. That is the point. There could be, Sarah said. That's what the resurgence protocol means. There could be humans again, children, families, a culture rebuilt, but only if the stations survive long enough to make that possible. And if the Council decides your species should stay extinct, if they order these stations destroyed, Sarah's jaw tightened. Then I'll destroy them myself before I let anyone else decide humanity's worth. The statement hung in the air like a threat. Mornith studied Sarah with calculating eyes. You have changed, Dr. Chen. When you first woke, you were broken, grieving. Now you are dangerous. Loss does that to people, Sarah replied. You grieve, and then you get angry, and then you decide to do something about it. Commander, Mornith said, turning to Vesh. I will follow your orders. But when this comes before the Council, as it inevitably will, I will testify honestly about everything we have done. I would expect nothing less, Vesh said. Thank you, Mornith. The tactical officer left and Sarah moved to sit across from Vesh. You're risking everything for me. Why? I have asked myself that question many times, Vesh admitted. At first I thought it was guilt. My people destroyed yours, so I owed you something. But it is more than that now. You are not just a human to me anymore, Sarah. You are a friend, and I will not let the Council make the same mistake twice. Sarah felt something warm in her chest, something she had not felt in a long time. Connection. Trust. Maybe even friendship. Despite everything. Thank you, she said quietly. Do not thank me yet, Vesh said with a color shift that might have been a smile. We still have to reach Station Omega, and we still do not know what we will find there. They found out 3 days later. Station Omega was hidden in a nebula, surrounded by clouds of gas and dust that made sensors nearly useless. It was larger than Jupiter Station, a massive structure that looked more like a small city than a research facility. But it was also damaged. Sections of the hull showed blast marks, signs of old battles. Archon, are you detecting the beacon? Sarah asked, speaking to the AI through the communication link they had established. Affirmative. The signal is coming from the station's central hub. Dr. Chen, I must warn you. I'm also detecting power signatures that suggest active systems. This station is not dormant. Sarah's heart raced. Active? You mean something's alive in there? I mean something is operating. Whether it is biological or artificial, I cannot determine from this distance. Sarah looked at Vesh. We need to go aboard. Agreed. But this time you do not go alone. The commander's tone left no room for argument. If there is danger, I want my people with you. They assembled a team. Sarah, Vesh, Telnar, and 4 security personnel. They approached the station carefully, docking at an intact airlock. The door opened easily as if it had been expecting them. Inside, the station was different from Jupiter. Where Archon's facility had been dark and waiting, Omega was alive. Lights glowed in the corridors. Air circulated. The temperature was comfortable for humans, which Sarah noticed immediately. Someone has been maintaining this place, she said, her voice echoing strangely in the empty halls. They moved deeper into the station, following the beacon signal. The walls were covered with something Sarah had not seen at Jupiter. Art, paintings, murals, sculptures. Human art created with human hands. Some pieces were old, clearly made before the war, but others looked newer, fresher, as if they had been created recently. This is impossible, Telnar said, examining one of the paintings. This canvas is perhaps 50 years old at most, but there have been no humans for 8 centuries. Sarah reached out to touch the painting. It showed Earth, blue and green and beautiful the way she remembered it. Tears blurred her vision. Someone has been keeping humanity alive here, keeping our culture alive. They reached the central hub and Sarah stopped dead. The room was enormous, filled with equipment and computers. But what caught her attention was the garden. An actual garden growing under artificial lights, filled with plants Sarah recognized. Tomatoes, wheat, flowers from Earth, species that should have been extinct. And in the center of the garden, sitting on a bench carved from stone, was a woman, not a human woman, an android clearly mechanical but designed to look human. She had dark skin, kind eyes, and she wore simple clothes. When she saw Sarah, she stood up and her face broke into a smile that was heartbreakingly human. "Hello," the android said in English, perfect and unaccented. "I am Mother. I have been waiting for you, Sarah Chen." Sarah could not speak, could not move. She just stared at this impossible thing, this machine that looked and sounded human. "Do not be afraid," Mother said gently. "I was created by the station's original crew before they died. They knew extinction was coming, so they built me to preserve what they loved. I have been keeping humanity alive in the only way I can. Through memory, through art, through care for things that humans cared about." "You've been alone here for 800 years, Sarah whispered. "Not alone. I have had purpose, and now I have you." Mother moved closer, studying Sarah with those two human eyes. "You are the first human I have met in 734 years. The others, they grew old and died. I cared for them until the end. And when the last one passed, I continued the work, because that is what they asked of me." Sarah felt her legs give out. She sat down hard on the floor, overwhelmed. "There were survivors here? Humans who lived after the war?" 23 of them, Mother said, sitting beside her. "They escaped the initial attack and made it to this station. They lived here, tried to rebuild what they could. They had children, a few, but the population was too small, the genetic diversity too limited. Eventually, disease and age took them all. The last human on Station Omega died 283 years ago. Her name was Maya Okonkwo, and she was 97 years old. She made me promise to keep going, to preserve humanity until someone came back, so I did." Veshkara knelt beside Sarah, her skin a sympathetic purple. "This Mother, she is not human but has more humanity than many living beings I have met." Mother looked at Vesh with interest. "You are Krinathi. Your people destroyed humanity." "Yes," Vesh said simply. "We did, I am sorry." "Sorry is a word," Mother replied. "Maya used to say that actions matter more than words. You brought Sarah here. You protected her. That is action. So perhaps your sorry means something." Sarah found her voice. "Mother, you sent out the beacon 7 years ago." "Why then? Why not earlier?" "Because 7 years ago I completed my primary work. I have preserved everything. Every piece of human culture I could recover. Every story, every song, every recipe and poem and scientific discovery. I have genetic samples from all 23 survivors carefully maintained. I have detailed records of human psychology, sociology, philosophy, everything needed to rebuild not just human bodies but human souls." Mother gestured to the computers around them. "And I have something else. Something the original crew created in their final years." "What?" Sarah asked. "Come, I will show you." Mother led them to another room, this one filled with machines Sarah recognized. Artificial wombs, genetic sequencers, advanced medical equipment. And in the center, suspended in specialized chambers, were embryos. Hundreds of them frozen in time, waiting. The survivors used the genetic material from all 17 stations to create these, Mother explained. They knew they were dying out, so they spent their last years creating children who would never be born. Children with maximum genetic diversity, designed to be healthy, strong, adaptable, children who could become a new humanity if someone ever came to wake them. Sarah stared at the embryos, her mind reeling. "You're telling me we can restore humanity? Just grow these embryos, raise the children, rebuild civilization?" "In theory, yes," Mother said. "But it would take resources, time, and most importantly, it would take people willing to raise human children. These babies would need parents, teachers, communities. They would need to learn not just how to be alive, but how to be human. I cannot give them that. I am a machine. I can preserve life, but I cannot teach them to live." Sarah looked at Vesh. "The council would never allow it. They'd see it as bringing back a threat." "Perhaps," Vesh said slowly, "or perhaps we frame it differently. These are not weapons or soldiers. They are children. Innocent. The galaxy made a terrible mistake 8 centuries ago. Maybe it is time to correct that mistake." "The council barely tolerates me," Sarah said bitterly. "What makes you think they'd approve creating more humans?" "Because we would not ask the entire council," Vesh replied. "There are 7 species in the collective. Not all of them agreed with the Purge War. Some have always regretted it. If we could convince even a few to support restoration, we could present it as an ethical imperative, not a political one. Telnar spoke up from where he had been examining the equipment. "Commander, this is beyond our authority, beyond anything we could accomplish alone." "I know," Vesh said. "That is why we need allies." "Sarah, Mother, how long can these embryos survive in stasis?" "Indefinitely with proper power," Mother said. "I have maintained them for centuries. I can maintain them for centuries more." "Then we have time," Vesh decided. "Time to build support. Time to make our case. Time to convince the galaxy that humanity deserves a second chance." Sarah stood, moving to the nearest chamber. Inside, an embryo no bigger than her thumb floated in preservative fluid. It was human. It was humanity's future, and it was impossible and fragile and terrifying. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "I'm just one person. How can I speak for an entire species that needs to be reborn?" "You do not speak for them," Mother said gently, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. The touch was mechanical but warm. "You speak to them, to the galaxy. You tell them what humanity was, what it could be again, and you trust that some will listen." Sarah turned to face the android. "Maya, the last human, what did she tell you?" "Before she died?" Mother's expression grew distant, accessing old memories. She said, "Don't let them forget we loved. Don't let them think we were just killers and conquerors. We were poets. We were gardeners. We sang to our children and we dreamed of stars. If anyone comes after, tell them that. Tell them we were worth remembering." "Then that's what I'll do," Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. "I'll tell them, and I'll fight to make sure these children get a chance to prove Maya right." Vesh's skin shifted to determined orange. "Then we fight together. But first we need to access the other stations. Mother, can you help us reach them?" "I have been in contact with 3 other station AIs," Mother said. "They are functional and waiting. I can provide you with safe routes to each." Over the next days, they cataloged everything at Station Omega. The art, the genetic material, the cultural databases. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and heartbreaking. Humanity reduced to files and frozen embryos, kept alive by a machine built with love. Sarah found herself spending hours in the garden, talking to Mother about the humans who had lived here, learning their names, their stories, their hopes. They had been the last of their kind, and they had not given up. They had created life even knowing they would not live to see it bloom. On their last night at the station, Sarah sat with Mother under the artificial sun, surrounded by earth plants. "Will you come with us?" she asked. "You shouldn't have to stay here alone." Mother smiled. "This is my home. This is where I preserve what they built. But I am not alone anymore, Sarah. I have you now. And when those children wake, if they wake, I will teach them about the humans who came before. I will tell them about Maya and all the others who refused to let humanity die quietly. I'll come back," Sarah promised. "When we've convinced the council, when we have support, I'll come back and we'll wake them together." "I will be waiting," Mother said. "I am very good at waiting." As the Zenith's promise left Station Omega, Sarah watched the facility disappear into the nebula. She carried with her data crystals full of information, genetic samples, and most importantly, hope. Real tangible hope that humanity could return. But she also carried the weight of responsibility. Those embryos, that culture, that entire potential future, it all depended on her ability to convince aliens who had once decided her species should die that they deserved to live again. It was impossible. It was insane. It was the only chance she had. And Sarah Chen, the last human, the survivor, the ghost who refused to fade, was going to take it. "Set course for the council homeworld," she told Vesh. "It's time to stop hiding. Time to make them face what they did. And time to show them what they almost killed forever." Vesh's skin shifted through several colors before settling on brave red. "The council will not be pleased." Sarah smiled, and it was fierce. "Good. Maya said actions matter more than words. Let's show them some action." The ship turned, heading toward the heart of Krinathi space. Toward judgment. Toward danger. Toward the chance to save a species that existed only in memory and possibility. Behind them, in a hidden station in a forgotten nebula, Mother tended her garden and waited. She had waited 800 years. She could wait a little longer. For humanity, for hope. For children who might someday play under a real sun, breathing real air, carrying forward the dreams of people who had refused to let death be the end. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Not alone. I have had purpose, and now I have you. Mother moved closer, studying Sarah with those two human eyes. You are the first human I have met in 734 years. The others, they grew old and died. I cared for them until the end. And when the last one passed, I continued the work, because that is what they asked of me. Sarah felt her legs give out. She sat down hard on the floor, overwhelmed. There were survivors here. Humans who lived after the war? 23 of them, Mother said, sitting beside her. They escaped the initial attack and made it to this station. They lived here, tried to rebuild what they could. They had children, a few, but the population was too small, the genetic diversity too limited. Eventually, disease and age took them all. The last human on Station Omega died 283 years ago. Her name was Maya Okonkwo, and she was 97 years old. She made me promise to keep going, to preserve humanity until someone came back, so I did. Veshkara knelt beside Sarah, her skin a sympathetic purple. This mother, she is not human but has more humanity than many living beings I have met. Mother looked at Vesh with interest. You are Krinathi. Your people destroyed humanity. Yes, Vesh said simply. We did, I am sorry. Sorry is a word, Mother replied. Maya used to say that actions matter more than words. You brought Sarah here. You protected her. That is action. So perhaps your sorry means something. Sarah found her voice. Mother, you sent out the beacon 7 years ago. Why then? Why not earlier? Because 7 years ago I completed my primary work. I have preserved everything. Every piece of human culture I could recover. Every story, every song, every recipe and poem and scientific discovery. I have genetic samples from all 23 survivors carefully maintained. I have detailed records of human psychology, sociology, philosophy, everything needed to rebuild not just human bodies but human souls. Mother gestured to the computers around them. And I have something else. Something the original crew created in their final years. What? Sarah asked. Come, I will show you. Mother led them to another room, this one filled with machines Sarah recognized. Artificial wombs, genetic sequencers, advanced medical equipment. And in the center, suspended in specialized chambers, were embryos. Hundreds of them frozen in time, waiting. The survivors used the genetic material from all 17 stations to create these, Mother explained. They knew they were dying out, so they spent their last years creating children who would never be born. Children with maximum genetic diversity, designed to be healthy, strong, adaptable, children who could become a new humanity if someone ever came to wake them. Sarah stared at the embryos, her mind reeling. You're telling me we can restore humanity? Just grow these embryos, raise the children, rebuild civilization? In theory, yes, Mother said. But it would take resources, time, and most importantly, it would take people willing to raise human children. These babies would need parents, teachers, communities. They would need to learn not just how to be alive, but how to be human. I cannot give them that. I am a machine. I can preserve life, but I cannot teach them to live. Sarah looked at Vesh. The council would never allow it. They'd see it as bringing back a threat. Perhaps, Vesh said slowly, or perhaps we frame it differently. These are not weapons or soldiers. They are children. Innocent. The galaxy made a terrible mistake 8 centuries ago. Maybe it is time to correct that mistake. The council barely tolerates me, Sarah said bitterly. What makes you think they'd approve creating more humans? Because we would not ask the entire council, Vesh replied. There are 7 species in the collective. Not all of them agreed with the Purge War. Some have always regretted it. If we could convince even a few to support restoration, we could present it as an ethical imperative, not a political one. Telnar spoke up from where he had been examining the equipment. Commander, this is beyond our authority, beyond anything we could accomplish alone. I know, Vesh said. That is why we need allies. Sarah, Mother, how long can these embryos survive in stasis? Indefinitely with proper power, Mother said. I have maintained them for centuries. I can maintain them for centuries more. Then we have time, Vesh decided. Time to build support. Time to make our case. Time to convince the galaxy that humanity deserves a second chance. Sarah stood, moving to the nearest chamber. Inside, an embryo no bigger than her thumb floated in preservative fluid. It was human. It was humanity's future, and it was impossible and fragile and terrifying. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. I'm just one person. How can I speak for an entire species that needs to be reborn? You do not speak for them, Mother said gently, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. The touch was mechanical but warm. You speak to them, to the galaxy. You tell them what humanity was, what it could be again, and you trust that some will listen. Sarah turned to face the android. Maya, the last human, what did she tell you? Before she died? Mother's expression grew distant, accessing old memories. She said, don't let them forget we loved. Don't let them think we were just killers and conquerors. We were poets. We were gardeners. We sang to our children and we dreamed of stars. If anyone comes after, tell them that. Tell them we were worth remembering. Then that's what I'll do, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. I'll tell them, and I'll fight to make sure these children get a chance to prove Maya right. Vesh's skin shifted to determined orange. Then we fight together. But first we need to access the other stations. Mother, can you help us reach them? I have been in contact with 3 other station AIs, Mother said. They are functional and waiting. I can provide you with safe routes to each. Over the next days, they cataloged everything at Station Omega. The art, the genetic material, the cultural databases. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and heartbreaking. Humanity reduced to files and frozen embryos, kept alive by a machine built with love. Sarah found herself spending hours in the garden, talking to Mother about the humans who had lived here, learning their names, their stories, their hopes. They had been the last of their kind, and they had not given up. They had created life even knowing they would not live to see it bloom. On their last night at the station, Sarah sat with Mother under the artificial sun, surrounded by earth plants. Will you come with us? She asked. You shouldn't have to stay here alone. Mother smiled. This is my home. This is where I preserve what they built. But I am not alone anymore, Sarah. I have you now. And when those children wake, if they wake, I will teach them about the humans who came before. I will tell them about Maya and all the others who refused to let humanity die quietly. I'll come back, Sarah promised. When we've convinced the council, when we have support, I'll come back and we'll wake them together. I will be waiting, Mother said. I am very good at waiting. As the Zenith's promise left Station Omega, Sarah watched the facility disappear into the nebula. She carried with her data crystals full of information, genetic samples, and most importantly, hope. Real tangible hope that humanity could return. But she also carried the weight of responsibility. Those embryos, that culture, that entire potential future, it all depended on her ability to convince aliens who had once decided her species should die that they deserved to live again. It was impossible. It was insane. It was the only chance she had. And Sarah Chen, the last human, the survivor, the ghost who refused to fade, was going to take it. Set course for the council homeworld, she told Vesh. It's time to stop hiding. Time to make them face what they did. And time to show them what they almost killed forever. Vesh's skin shifted through several colors before settling on brave red. The council will not be pleased. Sarah smiled, and it was fierce. Good. Maya said actions matter more than words. Let's show them some action. The ship turned, heading toward the heart of Krynathi space. Toward judgment. Toward danger. Toward the chance to save a species that existed only in memory and possibility. Behind them, in a hidden station in a forgotten nebula, Mother tended her garden and waited. She had waited 800 years. She could wait a little longer. For humanity, for hope. For children who might someday play under a real sun, breathing real air, carrying forward the dreams of people who had refused to let death be the end. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. You're afraid of what humanity might become. I understand that, but I'm asking you to look at what you've become. You committed genocide. You erased an entire species because you were afraid, and for 8 centuries you've lived with that shame. I've seen it in your history books, in your memorials, in the way Commander Veshkara's skin turns gray when we talk about the war. You know it was wrong. Thane leaned forward. And what would you have us do, Dr. Chen? Release you to raise an army of humans? Give you ships and resources to rebuild your species? No, Sarah said. I would have you let me raise a family. She pulled up another image, a simulation Mother had created. It showed children, human children, playing in a park, learning in schools, growing up surrounded by aliens of different species. I am not asking you to restore humanity to what it was. I'm asking you to let humanity become something new, something better. Let these children grow up in a galaxy that's already diverse, already multicultural. They would be the first truly galactic humans, raised to understand and respect other species from birth. And if they become aggressive? Maresh demanded. If they show the same violent tendencies? Then you stop them, Sarah said bluntly. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for a chance. These children would grow up under observation, under collective oversight. If they show signs of being dangerous, you intervene. But don't kill them before they're even born just because you're afraid of what their ancestors were. Veshkara stepped forward. Council members, I have spent over a year with Dr. Chen. I have seen her grief, her anger, her pain. And I have seen her choose mercy over revenge, understanding over hate. She has every reason to want our destruction, but instead she asks only for life. If we cannot grant that, then we are no better than the people who made the decision to purge humanity. Telnar spoke next. I have examined the embryos at Station Omega. They are genetically diverse, healthy, designed for long life and adaptability. The humans who created them spent their last years ensuring these children would be as perfect as possible. That is not the action of a violent species. That is the action of parents who love children they will never meet. The debate lasted for hours. Sarah stood through all of it, answering questions, defending her species, pleading for a chance. Some counselors were sympathetic. Others were hostile. Most were uncertain, torn between guilt for past actions and fear of future consequences. Finally, as the chamber's artificial sun began to dim, simulating nightfall, Thane called for silence. We will vote, not on whether to restore humanity, but on whether to allow Dr. Chen to attempt to raise a limited population under collective supervision. Those in favor? The voting display lit up. Sarah held her breath, watching as lights appeared. Green for yes, red for no. They appeared slowly, painfully, each one a judgment on her species' worth. The Krinathi vote split, some green, some red. The Hussith voted mostly red, with a few abstentions. The Meridians glowed green, their crystalline forms shimmering with what might have been approval. The Vorn split evenly. It came down to the Relthians, a species Sarah had barely interacted with. They were bird-like, with feathered crests and sharp eyes. Their representative, Counselor Keth, had said nothing during the entire debate. Now she spoke. My people were nearly destroyed once, Keth said in a high, musical voice. A plague centuries ago that killed 90% of our population. We survived only because another species helped us, gave us medical technology and resources when they could have let us die and taken our world. We have never forgotten that mercy. We will not deny it to another species now. The Relthian votes glowed green. The final tally appeared. It was close, so close Sarah could barely breathe. But there was more green than red. The motion passes, Thane announced. Dr. Sarah Chen will be granted custody of 20 embryos to be raised under collective supervision. The remaining genetic material will remain in stasis under council seal until these first children reach adulthood and can be properly evaluated. 20. Not hundreds, but 20. It was not everything Sarah had hoped for, but it was something. It was a chance. There are conditions, Thane continued. The children will be raised on a neutral world under observation. They will be educated in collective values as well as human culture. They will have the same rights as any species' children, but they will also have restrictions until they prove themselves trustworthy. And you, Dr. Chen, will be responsible for their development. If they become violent, if they show signs of being a threat, this experiment ends. I understand, Sarah said. Her legs were shaking, her heart pounding. 20 children. 20 chances to prove humanity deserved to exist. And Commander Veshkara, Thane said, turning to the Krinathi officer, your actions were insubordinate and dangerous. However, they were also motivated by conscience and a desire to correct past wrongs. You are hereby relieved of command of the Zenith's promise. Your new assignment is to assist Dr. Chen in raising these children and ensuring they do not become a threat. Vesh's skin flashed surprise, then settled into accepting blue. Yes, Council Leader. This session is adjourned. As the delegates filed out, some giving Sarah looks of sympathy, others of distrust, Sarah felt like she might collapse. Vesh caught her arm, steadying her. We did it, the Krinathi said quietly. Not everything, but something. 20, Sarah whispered. I can work with 20. Telnar joined them, his scales rippling with pleased colors. It is more than I hoped for. When we came here, I thought they might simply execute us all for treason. Sarah laughed weakly. The day's not over yet, but it was. They had won, impossibly. Sarah was going to be a mother to 20 human children who did not exist yet. She was going to rebuild humanity one small family at a time. The next months were a blur of preparation. The council assigned them a world called New Haven, a terraformed planet that had been abandoned decades ago, but still had functional infrastructure. Sarah, Vesh, and a small team of volunteers from different species worked to prepare homes, schools, medical facilities. Mother came from Station Omega, bringing the first embryos and all her accumulated knowledge. She would help raise the children, teaching them about the humanity that came before. Sarah stood in the medical facility, watching as the first embryo was transferred to an artificial womb. It would take 9 months, just like a natural pregnancy. 9 months to prepare, to learn, to build a life for this child who would be the first human born in over 800 years. Are you ready? Vesh asked beside her. No, Sarah admitted. I'm terrified. What if I do this wrong? What if they ask me about Earth and I can't explain it right? What if they grow up and hate me for being the last? For not doing more? Then you will make mistakes and they will forgive you and you will all learn together, Vesh said. That is what families do. Sarah looked at her friend, this alien who had risked everything to give humanity a chance. You know what's funny? My wife was the captain. She was the brave one, the leader. I was just a scientist. I never wanted this responsibility. And yet here you are carrying the future of your species, Vesh said. Morgan chose well. She knew you were strong enough to survive. Sarah reached out and took Vesh's hand, a gesture that had become natural between them. Human and Krenathi, standing together, watching new life begin. Tell me something, Sarah said. In 800 years, will there be humans and Krenathi working together like this? Real coexistence? I do not know, Vesh said honestly. But we are trying. That has to count for something. 9 months later, Sarah held her daughter for the first time. The baby was perfect, tiny and squirming and very much alive. She had dark eyes and black hair, and when she cried, it was the most beautiful sound Sarah had ever heard. Hope, Sarah whispered, the name she had chosen. Your name is Hope Chen Okonkwo. Chen for her and Morgan. Okonkwo for Maya, the last human who had believed this moment would come. Over the next years, more children were born. The facility, filled with laughter and crying and the chaos of raising babies. Some days were hard. Some days Sarah broke down, overwhelmed by loss and responsibility. But Vesh was there, and Mother, and Telnar, who turned out to have a gift for pediatric medicine. And slowly, a community formed. The children grew. They learned to walk, to talk, to ask endless questions about everything. They grew up speaking multiple languages, playing with alien children who visited, learning about both human culture and galactic civilization. They were different from the humans who came before, but they were still human in the ways that mattered. They loved, they laughed, they dreamed. 5 years after Hope's birth, Sarah sat in a garden she had planted, tomatoes and wheat and flowers from earth, grown from seeds Mother had preserved. Hope played nearby with her friend Catherine, a young Relthian whose mother had voted to save humanity. They were having a tea party with dolls, speaking a mixture of English and Relthian, negotiating the complex politics of stuffed animals with serious faces. Vesh joined Sarah on the bench. The council wants a report. They want to know if the experiment is succeeding. Tell them to come see for themselves, Sarah said, gesturing to the children. Tell them to watch Hope share her toys with Catherine. Tell them to see how the kids don't care which species is which. They just care about playing together. Tell them that if this is what happens when you give people a chance, maybe we should try giving more chances. I will tell them, Vesh said. Her skin was peaceful blue. The color Sarah had learned meant contentment. You know, when I found you in that pod, I thought I was discovering history. I did not realize I was finding a friend. Same, Sarah said. She leaned her head on Vesh's shoulder, a gesture that would have been impossible a year ago. Thank you for everything. Thank you for showing us we could be better, Vesh replied. Hope ran over, holding a flower. "Mama Sarah, look, it's like the pictures from Earth." Sarah took the flower, a simple daisy, and felt tears in her eyes. "It is, baby. It's exactly like Earth." "When I'm big, will there be more humans?" Hope asked with the blunt curiosity of children. "Maybe," Sarah said. "If you and your brothers and sisters show the galaxy that humans can be good neighbors. If you prove that we deserve a chance." "We will," Hope said confidently. "We're really good at sharing, and we only fight sometimes." Sarah laughed, pulling her daughter into a hug. "Then we're already doing better than the humans before." That night, after the children were asleep, Sarah stood outside and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, dead, but not forgotten. Somewhere were the stations, still waiting, still preserving what humanity had been. And here, on New Haven, 20 children slept, dreaming human dreams in an alien sky. It was not the restoration she had imagined when she first woke. It was not Earth reborn, not civilization rebuilt to its former glory. But it was real. It was alive. It was hope. Sarah thought about Morgan, about how her wife had spent her last moments giving Sarah a chance to survive, about how that act of love had rippled across 8 centuries and resulted in this, a second chance for humanity, built not on revenge or violence, but on the simple, stubborn belief that life was worth fighting for. "I survived," Sarah whispered to the stars, to Morgan, to all the ghosts. "And I made sure it meant something. Not what we were, but what we could become. I hope that's enough." The stars didn't answer, but behind her, in a house filled with sleeping children, humanity breathed and dreamed of tomorrow. That was answer enough. Years later, when Hope and her siblings were grown, when they had children of their own, when the council agreed to wake more embryos, Sarah would tell them about the day she woke to find herself alone, about the journey that brought them to this moment, about Morgan and Maya and Mother and Vesh and all the people who believed humanity deserved a second chance. And her children would listen, and they would understand. They were not the humans of old Earth, and they never would be. They were something new, something different. They were the humans who grew up among the stars, who learned to be galactic citizens from birth, who carried forward the best of what came before while leaving behind the worst. They were humanity's second chance. And they would make it count. Sarah Chen lived to be 93 years old. She was surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren when she died. Over 200 humans, born from the 20 she had raised. She died in the same garden where she had watched Hope play, holding Vesh's hand, knowing that humanity would continue after her. Her last words were, "Tell them we made it. Tell them we survived." And they did. Humanity survived. Not the way it had been, but better, wiser, kinder. Born from the ashes of genocide, raised with love by the last survivor and the alien who refused to let history repeat. In the end, Sarah's survival meant everything. It meant hope. It meant second chances. It meant that even in the darkest moments, even when everything is lost, life finds a way forward. One human had drifted in the dark for 800 years, and from that one human came a future no one could have imagined. A future where humans and aliens worked together, learned together, built together. Where the word humanity meant not just a species, but a quality. The quality of choosing mercy over vengeance, hope over despair, life over death. That was Sarah Chen's legacy. That was what it meant to be the last human who refused to let humanity die. And it was enough.